Well, good morning, everyone. Karen, I think you're joining us here in just a second. See some more people coming into the worship service. That's great. We'll welcome you in. Hey, looks like your volume, there you go. Hey, good morning. Uh-oh. How's your volume? Let me hear you.
I'm pretty good, huh?
Oh, good. There we go. Good. Hey, it's good to see you again.
Nice to see you. Nice to be in my house.
Yeah, welcome back to your house.
Thank you. It's been a long, long time.
Yeah, how are things going? How are you?
It's okay, but I got good news, man.
Yeah?
I'm gonna be a grandparent any day now. My oldest is having a baby. She went in this morning. So yeah, this is a real excitement, new life. And to have Eden born just in February and now another baby coming, it just gives me a lot of hope in this.
Yeah.
That new life is coming. It will always come. And what a joy.
Yeah.
But wish me luck.
I will wish you some luck. Absolutely. Yeah, you know, those blessings of new life, those are real. I've as my family is still in New Zealand, I've had a chance to connect with other friends who have young children and kind of be the uncle and just like spend time with these other kiddos that I love. And that's just been a really sweet connection that's been emerging. So it's really good to be with you and good to see you all streaming in. Good morning, everyone. We'll get started here. My name is Justin Schroeder. I'm one of the ministers at First Universalist Church and just want to extend the warmest of welcomes to all of you joining us this morning. Those of you who are with your families and children, welcome especially to the children. Pay attention if you're a child, well, just all of you, pay attention. Some things may happen or maybe already are happening behind me as this service progresses. So welcome to the children with us and the youth and the adults and first-time visitors who are joining us online this morning. We're really glad you're here. I know many of you are already doing this, but if you'd like to and you haven't yet, you can put it in the chat box, just a hello and a good morning, and let us know where you're joining us from. Oftentimes it's in the Twin Cities, but many times it's other parts of the country and even the world. So say hello and let us know where you're coming from. And I just want to remind everyone, if you're new to Zoom or new to this platform, we can't see you, we can't hear you, so you can be cooking breakfast or drinking coffee or just spilled something and we have no idea. We're just delighted you're here with us for worship this morning. And if you're having trouble hearing the audio, you can always dial in and listen that way. And when you send chats to us, just make sure it's to all attendees and panelists. That way your message will go to everyone. So as we are gathering, I want you to imagine that we are gathering in our physical sanctuary, if you're able to do that. I know many of you have been there many times, and some of you haven't been there, but you can imagine a sanctuary with wooden pews and a chancel and a pulpit. And I want you to imagine your fellow spiritual travelers gathering around you. And though we are virtual right now, this is in essence what we are doing. We are creating a sacred space online together, gathering together in this community to remember who we are and who we want to be in the world. And so you can imagine us in the actual sanctuary or know that we are creating that sanctuary, that sacred space right now as we gather together. For over 160 years, we have come together in this way, physically and virtually. We have come together called by the universalist spirit of love and hope to be the people who give, receive, and grow together. We are the people who welcome, affirm, and protect the light in each human heart, who listen deeply to where love is calling us next, and who with humility, courage, and compassion act to create a more just world. We do all of these things as a faith community committed to racial justice. These are our practices. This is the life that we invite you into when you journey with us. And it is really good to be with all of you this morning. And friends, I think part of an authentic welcome is acknowledging, saying out loud that we are living in hard times and times that will probably get even harder for many of us. And so if this time is particularly challenging for you, if you are struggling to pay your rent or to pay the mortgage, or there are bills piling up, or basic necessities or unaffordable groceries and whatever else it might be, we want you to know that the church is here for you in all kinds of ways, whether there are spiritual needs or financial needs or just emotional support needs. We want to be here for you and for one another. Every single week, we receive many requests from members and friends for support. Sometimes it's financial support, often it's spiritual support or just emotional support. And this is a time for all of us to really practice asking for what we need, to not carry our struggles alone. So please do reach out to me or to Reverend Karen or anyone on staff if you are in need, and so that we can support one another, so that we can be there for one another. I also want to let you know, if you're looking for deeper involvement with us, make sure that you head over to our website and you can sign up online for our weekly electronic newsletter. That's called the Weekly Liberal. It goes out every week, and just lots of information about ways to connect and be in fellowship with us. I also want to invite you to our Wednesday worship service at 7 o'clock every Wednesday. It's a 25-minute, 30-minute service, just a place in the middle of the week to gather, to catch our breaths, to recenter, to sort of build up some fortitude for the rest of the week and the days to come. It's become one of my favorite services. I'll be leading this service on Wednesday, and I hope to see you there. Following the service today, we're offering 2 virtual coffee hours, just a chance after the service to gather and talk with those who have been in the service. There's one for Black and Indigenous and multiracial people of color, and then there's also one for white folks. We're also offering our First Step class right after the service today. Our First Step class is a short 45-minute to hour-long gathering. It's on Zoom for anyone who's interested in learning more about the church and ways to be involved. In this class, you'll have a chance to introduce yourself and to meet other folks and to share a bit about your journey and what brought you to First Universalist. First Step is led by a member of the congregation. And because this class is a time for connecting and a time for sharing, we hope that when you join, you'll join with your video and your audio on so that the group can see you and hear from you. So now let's take a moment, as people are still coming into this virtual space. Let's take a moment to center ourselves for a time of connection, a time of renewal, a time perhaps of gratitude, a time of tears, all that this hour holds as we remember those things of value and of worth in our lives. We come into this time trusting and hoping that our heartbeat, we will sense our heartbeat joining that larger heartbeat that we are a part of. So let's begin by taking 3 deep breaths together to really arrive, to feel ourselves coming together as one body, breathing together as we prepare for worship. And now I invite you, if you have your chalice or a candle nearby, I invite you to light that and to join Mabel and Lamont as they lead us in our chalice lighting words.
Please join me for saying our words to light our chalice. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another.
Hi, everybody. Many of you know that for the past 3 months, my family was tucked away in a cabin in the woods, about 5 hours from here in northern Minnesota. While we were tucked away, we discovered lots of things. But one of the things that was so interesting for me is that as a new person to Minnesota, I'm just recently getting integrated into this whole cabin. I mean, I grew up in a place where we went to the beach. We went to the shore down in Jersey. Now, 11 years ago, when I first integrated into this ritual life of Minnesota, the idea of going to the cabin seemed really strange. Like I said, the beach was a summer vacation. On the Jersey Shore, or maybe even Cape Cod or Martha's Vineyard or Nantucket, on the boardwalk at night, in Jersey, and at the clam shacks along the Cape. I just didn't get the allure of being around a fire, swatting mosquitoes, and doing jigsaw puzzles. But I learned to fit in, have fun, embrace the culture, even though I was psychologically distant and I always had to gaze sort of through an anthropologist eye. Until this spring, something happened up on Cass Lake. Aspen and I went on adventures every day, visiting little towns, looking for playgrounds and exploring the woods, lakes, and trails. One morning, we were pulling out the old minivan onto the gravel road to get to what we call the smooth road, when I looked ahead and noticed a really funny looking dog. I yelled out to Aspen and I said, "That black dog sure does have a big butt." She fell out laughing. Then the dog turned and I saw its face and screamed, "Aspen, that's not a dog, it's a bear. Aspen, a bear, a bear." She looked straight ahead and saw it too. And then it scampered away towards the lake through the woods. We had to do something. We had to call somebody. So we called Grandma and said, "Grandma, we just saw a bear." We couldn't stop talking about it. But most of all, we wanted to see it again. We wanted to find it. Now, it was a juvenile, and we guessed and we thought maybe Mama was around too, which gave us a little pause. Each day after that, we found out more. We told Uncle Charlie down the road and said that the bear was near our cabin. And he says, "Oh, that bear was laid in my raspberry patch last week." So we went looking for evidence at his cabin. We would see footprints that we thought were the bear. We heard sounds of movement as we walked along the trails and thought it was the bear. One day we walked down the road and smelled the stinky smell, and we said, "I bet that is the bear's distinctive cologne." Everywhere we went, we wanted to meet the bear again, but we never did. But instead of finding a bear, we learned a lesson. Seeing something special, seeing special things is very cool. We will never be the same because we saw the bear. It was the highlight of my summer and an affirmation of my connection to this place, as I have now taken root among the aspen tree roots, all connected, one base, many branches, many trees, one organism. I think that bear was trying to tell me, when it glanced back at us, that I should follow him, because that's what I discovered in that search for the bear. Evidence everywhere I looked. Follow him. Follow him. Follow and find the deep beauty of up north there, so I can live now, live in this place that I have come to love. And I decided, I don't need the ocean. I don't need the fried clams. I've got the woods. So on the way home, we stopped in Brainerd. And guess who we ran into? And now we'll have Franco leading us, and love will guide us.
Hey, Karen, I think you're muted. And there was, I'm just gonna, before we move into prayer, it looks like you're muted. And I think there was a little bit of trouble with your microphone as well, which we will get solved as we move into this time of prayer. It looks like your mic is on, and there was a little bit of like brushing up against a mic maybe earlier we were hearing. Thanks.
Computer, new home. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your graciousness. Have you ever noticed recently that you don't necessarily know what day it is? Does it matter? Have you found it easier to access stillness? Have you heard new sounds in your neighborhood? Have you sensed your own senses anew in the last few months? If so, you are much like the Earth. Geologists and seismologists have calculated that the level of noise in the world has diminished so much. They can hear the movement of the Earth, the plates moving and the Earth gurgling. Less movement, less emissions. The fog has lifted over Delhi and Los Angeles, and blue skies that have not been seen in years are emerging in the brilliance that was always there. What else have you noticed? Have you noticed that you have more room to ask questions, more room to rekindle old relationships and deepen others, more room to look in the mirror and take inventory, sort through, rediscover, reclaim, and let go? Many of us are finding we have space and maybe even permission to cry quietly or uncontrollably because it needs to happen. Let it happen. In today's shared silence, do what you must with your body. If you need to move around your kitchen or your living room with your arms flailing in silence. If you need to be still, feel free to curl up at the corner of the bed and pull your blanket over your head or your computer. Do what you must with your thoughts. If you want to fill your mind with words, do so. If you want to empty it like a blank wall, then do what you must as we share this time of silence. Together, we will do what we need to do to survive these times. There is no vaccine and there are no prescriptions. As we negotiate, make commitments, and change plans because the world is tilting in new ways and our COVID brains are on fire sometimes. Let's be gentle with ourselves, forgive ourselves, love ourselves and each other. As we pray, as we dream, as we hope for new images of the future, remember that less can open us up to plenty, that plenty can be shared, and that sharing is the most basic of human gestures. We are a community of communities. Let the spirit of momentary joy in your life be shared in this community. Tell someone that it's all good. Tell someone that you care. Tell someone we will get through this together. Hold on to someone and remind them you will never let them go. We will not let Karen Warren's spirit in this community go, as she is elected to stop ingesting food and water as she prepares to die. Her daughter Courtney is with her as this transition nears. We are with you, dear friend. Ron and me and E and Li and Reed, in the light of their hearts, we ask you to stick with them as they mourn the death and celebrate the life of Ron's sister, Susan Puchel. Susie died suddenly on Monday morning in Fresno, California, after 9 years of living courageously beyond the limitations of cancer. Also, we hold Casey Rush in our hearts as her stepmother has passed on and died. We ask you to today type in your sorrows and your joys in this space. Let the joy be seen next to the sorrow and the sorrow next to the joy. Let us mix up the reality of our lives in one big pot of emotions and feelings and ideas and concerns about our families, our world, our neighborhoods, our friends, our church. Let them come in. Let us read them. Let us know that all of these concerns are with us. We will hold these concerns close and dear to us. Pick one that you see right there on the screen in the chat that you want to lift up this week. Write it down and remind yourself to think about that family, think about that situation so that you too can live in their joy or hold their sorrow with compassion. This is community. This is church. This is what it's all about, people. There's nothing better. There's nothing more necessary than what we're doing right at this moment, quickly and courageously, and with misspelled words and quick typing. We are letting the world know with our fingers and our words that we are connected to one another. We pray for peace. We pray for love. We pray for our country. We pray for our world. We pray for all of the possibility that individuals can make with one another when they decide to do good, when they decide to care, when they decide to make a difference. Blessed be and amen. And now, our beloved Franco will lead us in the spirit of life.
Thank you, Franco, for that wonderful music, and Karen for your prayer. What I was struck by is, even though there were some noises with the microphone, that time and the way that we held that together is beautiful. And we really rested in that invitation that you put out there for us to let the joys mix with the sorrows and to note what had been named in the chat and to kind of carry that with us through the week. So thank you for that. there were bears everywhere. We were surrounded by small bears, big bears, brown bears, even some grizzly bears. There was no escape. They were everywhere. But we weren't one bit scared. And let me explain what I mean. This is in the second half of March, and my family and I are in New Zealand on sabbatical. And New Zealand has just gone into one of the strictest COVID-19 lockdowns around the world. We and everyone else in New Zealand couldn't leave our homes, our houses, apartments, whatever it was, unless it was for sort of a daily exercise or for some essential need, like groceries or going to the doctor. So suddenly we're in a situation, and many of you are in the situation here, where going out of the house is a really big deal. And we decided as a family that when we left the house, we were going to take a bike ride together. And honestly, it felt like a little mini vacation, this wild adventure out into this world that we were no longer participating in so many of the ways we had before. So in just a few days into lockdown, on one of our bike rides, we noticed something. We noticed bears, itty bitty bears, Mississippi bears. That's a shout out to you Lizzo fans. We noticed black and brown bears and panda bears and Paddington bears and green bears and beanie baby bears and bears behind steering wheels of cars that were just parked by houses. We noticed families of bears in upstairs windows. Here's just a few pictures of some of the bears that we noticed. There's that bear in a window. There's a family of bears. Now, I don't know who put up the first bear in New Zealand, but the idea was that with such a strict lockdown, putting out a bear was a way to give children, and let's be honest, a way to give adults as well, something to do when we went out for our daily walk, our daily exercise or bike ride. It gave us something to look forward to. We could go on a bear hunt and see how many bears we could find. This idea, of course, comes from the book We're Going on a Bear Hunt. And many of you know this book, I suspect, and you probably know the refrain, the one that goes, we're going on a bear hunt. We're gonna catch a big one. We're not scared. We're not scared. And I will tell you, in a time, certainly in New Zealand, I think around the world, when everybody was feeling scared, when borders were closing, when airlines were grounding their planes, when we didn't know how the coronavirus spread and how long it stayed on particular surfaces, and we were taking all of these precautions, and we were watching more and more people get infected, there was a lot of fear that was going around. And so seeing these bears up in windows and all sorts of places in people's homes, it felt like this incredible gesture of kindness and solidarity, a way of saying, we're not going to succumb to the fear. This is a scary time, but we're not going to succumb to this fear. And so in this time when there was so much fear and uncertainty, I had this really surprising emotional reaction. I got kind of tearful on one afternoon when Jesse and I, our 5-year-old, were out biking around, and we saw probably a couple of dozen bears, and it was just this game. We were like, do you see that one? Do you see that one? There's 3 over there. And sometimes people would be in the window with the bear, like looking out, waving at us. And it was emotional. It brought up some big feelings in me. And so we got back from that bike ride, and by some miracle, the house we were renting had a stuffed bear in it. And so Jesse and I got that stuffed bear and put it out by our garage. And I'll show you that picture real quick here. There's that little bear just hanging out by our garage. Now, as Unitarian Universalists, we believe that wisdom and insight and truth can be found in many places. It's not confined to one sacred text or one time in history or one person. It can be found everywhere, and it's ongoing, this wisdom that the world and our relationships and kind of our reflection can surface from so many places. And I think maybe as Unitarian Universalists that we see this wisdom perhaps and especially in children's songs and stories. And not just as you use, I think in general, children's songs and stories can contain real wisdom. They disarm us in many ways and then land this solid piece of insight or truth just with a weight in our soul. We're like, ooh, I need to remember that. So for those of you who don't know the book, we're going on a bear hunt or remember all the deals. Let me just do a quick reminder, because I think the teachings of this book are very relevant to this moment and this time we're in right now. So in this book, a group of kids and an adult, I think it's just one adult, but maybe there's more than one adult, they go out on a bear hunt. And as the story progresses, they move through this giant field of grass, they move through a river, they move through a mud flat, they move through a blinding snowstorm, and ultimately they go into a cave, and that's where the bear is. And each time they come to an obstacle, the other refrain in the book is, we can't go over it, we can't go under it. Oh no, we're gonna have to go through it. And so they come along to the grass, and it's swish, 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 moving through the really tall grass. And then they come to the river, and it's like, dive, sploosh, splash, sploosh, splash. They come to the forest, like stumble, 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 trip, stumble, trip. They come to the mud flats, like squelch, 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 and on and on. It is silly, and it's funny, and it's true. It reminds us that sometimes whatever we're facing, we can't go over it, we can't go under it. We just have to go through it. Just have to go through it. So whether it's a really big feeling that you're having, or this time of global pandemic and COVID-19, or a particular experience that's in front of you in your life, or whatever it might be, sometimes you just have to go through it. I suspect we know this is true, and we all have moments like this. All of us have moments like this. I remember when Juliana, my wife, was in labor with Jesse, our youngest son, and she's given me permission to share this story, and maybe some of you have heard this before. She'd been in labor for a long time, and she was feeling anxious and scared. And the reason for this is I think both she and I were sort of having flashbacks to the labor and birth of our eldest son, which had been a multiple day ordeal and was just exhausting and traumatic in many ways. And we made it through, but it was hard. And so we were having flashbacks to that earlier birth. And as my wife was laboring and just exhausted, Juliana she started to say, like, I can't do it. I can't do this. I just can't. I can't do this. And those words just hung in that space, hung in that room we were in. And I'll never forget what happened next. Our birth doula, this woman that we had been working with who knew our history and knew the story of our first child and his birth, and had been really working with Juliana prior to this labor she was in, and had been with Juliana all night as she had been laboring. This birth doula said in the kindest and gentlest and most direct and clear and loving way, this no nonsense, just straight on, heartfelt way, as Juliana was saying, I can't. This birth doula looked at her and looked at me and looked at Juliana again and said, but you are doing this. You are doing it. You are doing it right now. And the way that our birth doula said this to us made it clear that it wasn't something to argue with. It was simply a loving fact. And when it came to this birth, we couldn't go over it. We couldn't go under it. There were no shortcuts. We just had to go through it. And we did. And really, in fairness, Juliana did. I was more of a witness to this birth and this experience, but I felt the truth that the only way to move forward was to go through it. And I think that's where we are right now in this time of COVID-19, this time when Minneapolis schools will continue distance learning in the fall, this time of uprising and racial unrest, this time when democracy feels so fragile, this time when many of us and those we love are losing jobs and facing housing insecurity or loss of healthcare. So much of that was showing up in the prayer and just this recognition that so many people will be impacted. And I want to just say again, as we are in this time of great instability and great uncertainty, that it is a system that is failing us. It is not any of us as individuals who are broken or who have failed. It is a system that could provide affordable housing or have housing be a human right, a system that could have healthcare be a human right, and a system that could have a living wage sort of be understood as a human right. And so in these moments, with a culture of individualism and a sense of rugged individualism, the tendency in these moments is to turn inward and to blame ourselves for whatever is happening, to see it as our fault, our problem, something we have done wrong. And I want to say to you that I do not believe that is true. There are systems and architects of those systems that are failing us in this moment. And it's creating intense pressure. It's creating uncertainty and instability in so many of our lives. So we are in this moment where we can't go over it and we can't go under it. We just have to go through it. There are no easy hacks. There are no quick fixes. There's no workarounds. Going through it is testing us to our core. It is testing our communities. It is testing our country. And it is revealing painful and awful truths about oppressive systems that are really just coming into broad daylight. Going through this will change us. It has already changed us in many ways. It is messy, transformative work, and we are right in the middle of it, wondering if we can do it. Wondering maybe if we can stir up some good trouble as we go through this, wondering if there's something on the other side we can help build as we move through this. But we are right in the middle of it. And it reminds me of a story from Mark Nepo, from his book, The Book of Awakenings, that I want to share with you. In this book, he shares a very brief reflection on how a baby chick is born. And he writes this: "From the view of the chick, it is a terrifying struggle. Confined and curled in a dark shell, half formed, the chick eats all its food and stretches to the edges, to the contours of the shell. It begins to feel hungry and cramped. Eventually, the chick begins to starve and feels suffocated by the ever-shrinking space of its world. Finally, its own growth begins to crack the shell, and the world that the chick has known begins to come to an end. Its sky is falling. As the chick wriggles through the cracks, it begins to eat its shell. In that moment, growing but fragile, starving and cramped, its world breaking, the chick must feel like it's dying. Yet once everything it has relied on falls away, the chick is born. It doesn't die, but falls into the world." Mark Nepo continues, "The lesson is profound. Transformation always involves the falling away of things we have relied on, and we are left with the feeling that the world as we know it is coming to an end, because it is. Yet the chick offers us the wisdom that the way to be born while still alive is to eat our own shell. When faced with great change in self, in relationship, and our sense of calling, whatever it might be," says Mark Nepo, "we somehow must take in all that has enclosed us, nurtured us, incubated us, so when the new life is upon us, the old is within us." That's the end of the quote. Going through it, through COVID-19, through birth, through distance learning for our kids, going through beginning to see clearly all of the work that must be done to build a more racially just world, all of the work that must be done to end these systems of oppression and harm, that can feel like something is dying. And sometimes that thing needs to die, and sometimes it's something we've held so close for so long that it feels like we're dying as we look out on the world. And in many ways, things do need to die. Things are dying. But this book, We're Going on a Bear Hunt, gives us a clue about how to get through it in these moments when it feels like the world as we've known it is dying. This book isn't called I'm Going on a Bear Hunt. It's not about the I. It's not about the individual. It's called We're Going on a Bear Hunt. And it's we who can't get over it, and it's we who can't get under it, and it's we who are going to get through it together. Alone, I don't know how my wife and I would have made it through our son's birth. But our birthing doula was witness and with us and coach and comforter. We went through it together with her as our son came into the world. And as a faith community, we are committed to being with one another, even in this time of physical distancing. That looks like a lot of things. That looks like checking in on one another, making phone calls and emails and setting up Zoom meetings, or if you can negotiate consent, it might mean setting up a walk around a lake with someone or sitting in a backyard, whatever it might be. That looks like talking about how our hearts are hurting because we cannot see and visit the people that we love, or there are people who are sick or ill in our lives. Sometimes that looks like naming our fears and being real about what is happening in our lives. Maybe we're about to lose our job or our housing or our healthcare, and we need to call in support. These are the ways we can be with one another. Many of you have heard me say over the years that church is like this gigantic ocean. I use this metaphor of an ocean. And sometimes we rest in that ocean. We can lie back and feel the love of this community, feel the hands of this community holding us as we build our strength again, as we rest and let others carry some of the struggle with us for just a little time. And then other times we show up and we are those hands. We are that larger body holding someone else who is struggling. And sometimes we are the ocean, and sometimes we need that ocean of care and love and support. However you look at this, it is no joke. We need one another. We need one another. We witness one another crack out of those metaphorical shells that feel like they're killing us. We witness each other fall into the world having gone through the gauntlet, whatever that gauntlet is. We witness each other wandering through the valley of the shadow of death, and then emerging somehow into new life. Not a life without grief, but a life opened up by grief. A life opened up to greater love and care and compassion. How do we get through it? We do it together. We have to. We can't go through the blinding snowstorm alone. We can't go through the muck alone. This is a time for community, for sharing resources and sharing care, for reimagining how the world might look. We need loving witnesses who see our lives and our struggles and can reach out a hand so we don't sink into that muck. And we can be that loving witness and reach out that hand as well. So friends, it doesn't have to be bears. It doesn't have to be stuffed bears, but we need neighbors and friends and strangers and fellow church members to give us a sign, to put something up in their windows, to put something up over their hearts that says, we won't let you go. We got this. We got you. We got one another. In a time like this, we need to hear and we need to tell one another. We can't go over it. We can't go under it. We have to go through it. And we have to go through it together. May it be so. And amen. And blessed be. This morning, our offering will be a 50-50 split between Habitat for Humanity and First Universalist Church. Habitat for Humanity is one of our faithful action partners, and we have been in relationship with Habitat for a number of years, decades really. And we have been explicit with Habitat for Humanity in more recent years about our racial justice commitments. And in part because of those commitments and our conversations with the leadership at Habitat, they have been incorporating much more of a racial justice lens and frame in the work they are doing. Though we cannot currently build houses with Habitat for Humanity because of COVID-19, our commitment to them remains strong, and we hope to be building again in a year or two with them. There are a number of ways you can give this morning. Those are up on your screen right now. You can text to give, that's super easy and super simple. You can use the Square Cash app to give. You can give online. You can also just write a check and send that to the church. Any of those ways are appreciated, and your support is deeply appreciated. And if you're not able to give, just a blessing for those who work for affordable housing, a blessing for those who are struggling to find housing, that is a gift you can offer as well. As we prepare to give and receive our offering, we'll hear some music by Cara and Chandler, Yorkhall. Beloved, this is no time to go it alone. This is no time to go back to sleep. This is a time to ask for what we really need, to reach out, to share what we have, to discover the power of we, and to know that together we will get through this. So imagine now the power of this community, hundreds of us holding one another, held by one another, here for one another. Imagine this and let us feel that reality as we sing and bless each other with the song, Go Now in Peace. So I want to share I'm gonna go off script here for a minute. This shirt, I've been feeling something in this pocket, and I just checked what it is. This is really beautiful. So here's what was in my pocket. This is a ribbon that was given out as a blessing, maybe last year, maybe 2 years ago at our backpack blessing, the start of school blessing, which of course this year is a very different reality and experience. And we're thinking about how we mark that transition when so many of us won't be taking backpacks to school. But this message, wherever you go, you are loved. Wherever you go. And this, we invited our kids and our teachers and those who are going to school to tie that on their backpack or somewhere on their clothing. And it is just resting in my pocket. And I think it's a message for all of us. Wherever you go, you are loved. It has been so good to be with you this morning, dear ones. And I invite you to extinguish your chalice, if you have had one lit, and to remember that we carry the flame of love and commitment and care and compassion with us. We need you, and you need us, and we need each other. And together, though we extinguish the chalice now, we carry the flame.